ABC's Dean Reynolds is in Chicago today. And Dean, I don't quite understand what it is you have, and we'll come back to the mood of Chicago in just a moment, but there was another incident involving a plane today.
That's right, Peter. They didn't know it at the time, but the pilot and all of the passengers aboard TWA flight number 3, bound from New York's John F. Kennedy Airport to St. Louis, came perilously close to one of those planes that crashed into the World Trade Center. So close that New York Air Control told the TWA jet to take evasive action to avoid a collision. You dodged one of the aircraft that hit the tower?
Well, he was up there whenever we were coming from New York, so what we had to do was, they were not talking to him, and he was changing his heading and his altitude, so they just cleared us to deviate however we had to stay away from him.
It was right after they had taken off, and the passengers were horrified.
I thought we were going to crash. I thought the plane was going to crash, because when we took off, the plane kind of went down and came back up, it was kind of shaking, and it wasn't your normal taking off routine. And then you could just see like a plane that just kind of just bypassed us really close, and I said maybe it was just a mere miss.
We had him in sight, so it was a nice day in New York. We were out of the clouds, which helped a lot, so we just, dodged him.
As the TWA jet ascended, others aboard said they could see a terrible sight below.
Then when we got really high up, my brother's a fireman, and so I said, doesn't it look like the Trade Center's on fire? And he says, yeah, it does. It looks like a big fire.
Now, the passengers told us, Peter, that after consulting with the pilot, the flight attendants pushed the food trays up against the cockpit door, apparently to guard against a possible hijacking. In any event, the plane continued on uneventfully until it was ordered to land at Dayton, Ohio, and it landed safely.
Stay with me for just 1 second, Dean, because if you weren't with this all day, there was a time this morning when the Federal Aviation Administration, first of all, didn't allow anybody to take off, and then ordered all planes in the air over the United States to land immediately at the nearest airport, which was how a plane which begins in New York and is going west ends up in Dayton, Ohio. Dean, now can we just talk a little bit about Illinois and the central part of the country? One of the very first things that happened today was the Sears Tower in Chicago was closed. What else happened there, and what other sense of that part of the country do you now have?
Well, I got to O'Hare Airport shortly after the attack on the World Trade Center, and of course it was basically a ghost town, except for everybody standing outside the airport waiting to get cabs elsewhere because nothing was going out of the airport. When I got into town, again, there were very few pedestrians. It was almost all police walking along the sidewalks, checking all of the state, federal, county buildings to see if there were any bombs. The police were checking to see if there were any missing buses or trucks. It was very tense here. Now, as the day has progressed, it looks as though life is returning to normal here, at least in Chicago, in the Loop area.
Thanks very much, Dean Reynolds in Chicago. We'll come back to you just to give you again some sense of the magnitude of this.